me, how'd you fall in love with the game of baseball?
Uh, I guess I could give you the real abbreviated version because it's a lot of years in baseball. But I remember being a kid and having a car behind my catch station, and I didn't break the car windows. It was like, cool, this is great, But just little simple things, just hitting your first home run as a little guy, getting your strikeouts, just the joy of going to the field. The kids on the street get together and stick ball, whatever it was. So just a lot of good memories. It just kept going through. And so when the game had some tougher moments, there were just a lot of good positive moments to keep you saying I can do it. And I just stayed with it. And fortunate enough, I got to the top.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about that journey. If you wouldn't mind kind of maybe starting at that time when you maybe as a player realized that you might have a future in the game. And then, what did that journey look like for you? Where did you play? And how did it go for you?
I think a good take home for a lot of kids that I've shared this in our facilities. I think you got to believe before you're there. And I always saw myself in a big league uniform. I didn't have the understanding fully of how it will all happen. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And I remember getting laughed at for putting in the yearbook as a young person. But, if you don't really see it happening, it's hard to have it actually happen. And so you in this case, for the order of things is you got to believe you're going to be that person, and then you work to achieve it. And I think that's why having great coaches as mentors and guys that just have those work ethics that are just unparalleled is necessary, because it's not a game of want to, it's a game of do what you need to, you do what you have to do. And you would hope you want to go to practice a lot, but as you get older, you realize it's not fun, after killing yourself in the weight room, walking around the next day and like you're just sore, but you do it because it's just what the game requires. It's what the love of the sport demands. And if that's why you have to love the sport. And if you love the sport, then you're going to love the process and that journey that comes with it. And for me, I didn't have the cleanest journey, but I just kept at it. I kept at it, and I was fortunate that I had those discoveries from staying in the mix. And I think as we teach people in here, it's all the things in baseball are solvable. They're not easy, but they're solvable. And first, there's a lot of firsts. First time you see a curveball, first time you see a 6'6" righty throwing 98. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of firsts. Like, wow, this is different. But your goal is to just keep training toward different. The first way to be different is to keep showing up. That's what makes people different. And I think that's a skill that everybody has. And I think it's discipline of showing up that really makes your practices intentional, and it makes you special. And that's why I don't think it's a God-given ability that sets everyone apart. There's God-given, head starts for sure with size and physicality, but it's the love and really it's who are you? That's what it is. Are you going to be a winner? Or are you just going to be another person who has the good life? Maybe you've worked to have a good life, but some people work for that unbelievable life. And I'd encourage people to shoot for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you talked a little bit about, I heard you say, some, maybe not hiccups is the right word, but, a bumpy path, right? It wasn't the, necessarily the first rounder or the first overall pick or, the
Far
poster
from it,
board,
yeah.
right? Right. So I guess maybe, share with our listeners a little bit more in depth, like where was college played? Like where were you drafted? How did you get to the apex of the game? And I think we can kind of tell through the first start of the conversation here, the grit is what separated you, right? But let's talk a little bit about that and what that road looked like for you.
Well, I think I think in all the training that you do, there's some element of, let's say, little touch of suffering to it, that underlines what great training is, because um, the love comes from overcoming those little things. And so, if you're an infielder, taking those few extra ground balls with a great, lower half positioning that burns the heck out of your legs, but you left the practice saying I did it, and you know, being the guy who, I give the example too, like, if you line up 10 7-year-olds, teach them for an hour how to catch a ground ball, everyone's got the gist of it. Now he said, now I'm going to hit it with something on it. Who wants to play? And then you got the one kid like little Joey says, hit it at me, I'll play. There's your baseball player. It's the willingness, right? That willingness comes from, I think, a belief in self. But the other thing is that, I think a spirit of unbreakable. You're not going to break me. Like, you might hurt a little bit, that's what, and the more you realize, like, you're not going to break me, the better and better you get. And I think that's what the game does. It breaks people. And they're like, I'm tired of going 0 for 4. I'm done. I'm not playing anymore. I'm tired of whatever it was, right? We all get tired of failure, but it's not that I think you're a better person. You wind up better for it if you keep showing up. And so, everyone gets beat up in the game here and there, and some people just throw in the towel, and some people say, I'm going to figure it out. So, you asked about college. I went to Villanova. We had a really good team. And it was fun to watch a lot of these really good players. I didn't even get to play that much. I mean, the whole freaking team was drafted, and I mean, the whole outfield was drafted, first base, the pitching staff's like, holy cow. So, I think I'm just coming in. I'll be playing. I think I'm talented. So I didn't have the storied college situation, and I just kept going at it and kept going. And, I met a coach, my brother, who was at a different college, introduced me to his college coach. And I thought he was very inspirational to me, because he was kind of like a mentor. Because I've found that he actually believed in me, which was refreshing. I thought I was starting to think maybe I'm a little crazy, but anyhow, I wound up getting signed. I go to pro ball, and 94, there's a strike. So I'm dating myself a little bit. Got released because I was the expendable guy. And you know what? Just kept at it, and just kind of discovered things, figured some things out, and took the advantage of learning from peers. And then just went on, got back into affiliated baseball after the strike stuff. And then I led some leagues, and got to the big leagues, and got called up there. It's been a couple of years, and so for me, it was awesome. We all wish it could be a greater story, but I'm glad I had enough of a story there. And now I just share that with our kids, some of the truths that I had to deal with, and that it is possible. It's not easy, but it is possible.
Well, that's a perfect segue to talking about the clubhouse, and love to hear what's the story of the program. Why did it start? When did it start? And where are you guys today?
When I started doing this, my feeling was that I wish I had a place like this when I was a kid. That's what I wanted, was somewhere that I could have known I got help, and so that's when we began. I wanted a place where kids could know they could get some meaningful help. And then that led to some of the kids saying, well, would you be willing to be our coach? We just don't feel like we have that same situation happening throughout our game experience. So I said, the heck with it, I'll try it, and then what I realized is that you can't put everybody together, because as much as everyone deserves an opportunity to learn, not everyone deserves the opportunity to be on the same field with some people. And it's just the nature of it is that some people really care, and they separate that. Uh, it's not okay to have that guy playing with somebody who doesn't care. And so anyhow, I realized that there had to be a shift. And so as much as some players didn't like it, um, back to the same thing. If you want to be on the highest team, then earn it. And it goes back to the same thing. Nothing in life is really given to you. In any real cases that I know of, anything really meaningful, you earn it from doing the work. And so it's kind of the way we have our teams too, that I wish everybody would earn the highest opportunities, but so not everyone, and on that point though, not everyone's ready for the highest opportunities. And so you can earn what you're ready to earn, and your plate can only handle so much. So the job isn't to overwhelm you and have the game kick you in the teeth. It's to continue that love for the game and realize, like, hey, I'm doing pretty well here, but I still have stuff to do. There's some people that are just in front of me right now. And I think the path to the top isn't by asking if you're working, like, hey, I did some work today. It's asking how many people are still better than me. And when you're willing to ask that and be honest about it, and you might be the number one player in our state is Connecticut. You might be the number one player in Connecticut, which is fantastic. But the next level recruits nationally and even globally, when we're talking about the draft. So you need to be better than your best guy in Connecticut. And you're going for best guy in New England, best guy in the country, and so on. And that's just how it works. And it doesn't mean that being the best guy or second best guy in your state means you're doomed to failure. But my path was, I just believed there were people better. So I got to keep getting better. And then pretty soon you get to be in the uniforms that you want to be in. And then those guys are pretty good, and you keep on working.
Absolutely. So what year did you guys start the clubhouse?
We started it in 2000. Technically, our grand opening was 2009, but I'd say because it was December, so it was really 2010. Gotcha. We opened up, and then we started teams probably around 2012, 13, something like that.
Okay. If you could use one word to describe your program's identity, what would it be? And how would you say, as the owner and founder, you try to bear that out on a daily basis?
Well, I think you could tell from I'm not good at these one word answers here.
That's okay.
So that's a good question. That one I should have prepped for. I'd say, I'd like to believe that we're just a hardworking bunch that believes in our chance to compete with everybody. And like that's not quite one word, but
it's not. And when I was running the Scorpions, we played you guys at the Perfect Game Underclass. I think it was the Final 8 or Final 16, something like that. And the word I would use is relentless, personally, right? And from a mentality of, now that I've gotten to know you more, right? From the training side, obviously, just being continually a part of your kids' lives and being invested in what they do. And for me, that was born on the field too. As an organization like the Scorpions, who, we show up to those type of events expecting to win the whole thing, and running into an organization out of the Northeast in the playoffs, and first being like, what are they doing here, right? And then second of all, having to run a fancy first and third play with 2 outs in the 7th inning to pull off a win, because you guys are just out wanting it more than we did. I can remember after that game, and luckily for us, we came out on top. But I can remember it actually propelled us to winning that tournament, because I had the opportunity to get on my guys and be like, that's the way the game's supposed to be played. And that's something that when the Diamond Legion started, was one of the reasons that I reached out to you. So if you were to ask me, I'd say relentless for your program. And well, I hope it's close.
I really appreciate that. I take that as a big compliment. And I think actually, if I were to tweak my answer a little bit, I'd say I'd be really grateful if people looked at our players and they're like worthy of respect. That's what I think it's about. And so that to me is a big compliment. I appreciate that, Matt. And and I hope we play in a way that just not only our players, our coaches carry themselves in a way that the people we play against, win or lose, respect the efforts we put out on the field. And we know there's other great organizations out there. That's the whole point of doing the Diamond Allegiance, to be a part of a group of people just trying to do it right. And I want to see that kind of fostered in the game of baseball, because we all want those opportunities as baseball players to live our best life in the game. And it just requires, I think part of it is networking, knowing the right people, being around coaches that can help you grow you as a player, and even your experience level that you could take into coaching. So not everybody's meant to hit a baseball in the major leagues, and it's perfectly fine. But there's a lot of amazing coaches that came out of, I had a coach I thought was fantastic who came out of the scouting department. And he was with the Braves a long time. And, he coached Cy Youngs. Like, it's just, even Craig Wallenbrock, another guy came out of the scouting world. He wasn't a Major League Baseball. Talk about a gifted hitting coach in terms of talking about stuff. So you can learn from all different people. You'd be surprised. Dante Bichette still looks like he can hit a ball 500 feet, and
Can.
but not every hitting can, and he probably can, right? But not everybody. And I had the good fortune of playing with him. I'm not even a little bit surprised that his sons are doing well. But you don't have to be that big league superstar to be able to influence people in a positive way. And so I'm fortunate I did have a little bit of opportunity there, but the game just needs people who care enough to move it forward. And there's a lot of opportunity out there to learn with the social media. And I go on social media, I look at stuff too. I think there's guys that post some great stuff. And so for the kids that don't have the extra means to do private lessons and all that, you're not lost. You just get on social media and find some people that you can connect to. And I just be clear on, find people that you can connect to, be open about it, but don't buy into you have to do this or you have to do that kind of mentality. Everyone's a little different, and what some people talk about is not maybe perfectly right for you. So find your own solution. And I think that's the path to really success, is finding your solutions, and they're all solvable. But if you put enough effort in, you'll definitely find a better way to do it.
Love it. So we're talking about coaches, obviously. You don't run a successful organization like yours unless you surround yourself with really good people, right? So who are some of the key people, whether it's administratively, on the field, in the cages, that really help you guys and make you guys what you are?
Well, I'm going to start with my wife, because she does all of the administrative support needs that, as you know, there's a lot of them with just the booking hotel, getting blocks on all that stuff, and making sure tournaments and whatever. There's plenty of things to do there, and communication. So thank you to my wife for that. And then so she has her group of people that head up the administrative side, and on the baseball side, we've been fortunate. We have some people here for a while, then some faces come and go. But so I think I'm technically, I guess, in charge of player development, but I have great people with me that carry out a lot of the player development. So James Campbell is one of our longtime pitching guys. He was a Stony Brook standout. That's when they were went to the World Series. So he was part of that.
That's right.
Big sensational upset coming out of New England.
Yep.
So he does a lot of our pitching. And, I had Willie Upshaw here for 10 years. He was a name for the older generation. They remember he was a runner-up MVP with the Blue Jays and 3-time big league hitting coach. And so we used to have a lot of great conversations. But, now I have Steve is my right-hand guy, former catcher. And so we just have a lot of great people here that I think JJ was a former shortstop in the Mets organization. So just guys that are open to continue learning, but have their own informed perspective so that I'm not saying we do this and we do that. We can have conversations and we all try and figure out and carve out a path forward. And so a lot of guys along the way have influenced my experience and level on different skills. And so at this point, I'm 50 years old, so I'm sitting on a lot of years of time in the game. I'm pretty familiar with a lot of things, but I prefer to try and feel like experts do what they do. And so our pitching guys do pitching, our hitting guys do hitting, and so on. That way we can deliver the greatest outcome for kids. I don't think that's different than other places, but that's just what we're doing.
Love it. So you started Clubhouse, you said in like 08, 09. So by my calculations, about 15 years into this crazy world of player development, training youth players, and travel baseball. So if you could go back 15 years ago and tell you something that you know today when you were first starting off, is there any piece of advice that you give yourself when you're first starting off that you know now?
You got some doozies today with these questions.
I got some good ones, don't I?
Yeah. I think I'll say, we all can say that we could correct in some manners what we teach, but I think the one thing I did that I was happy with what I did from the get-go is just believe in people's potential to do more. Now, in terms of suggesting certain technical ways of doing it, I think we've all grown in those ways. And even with just all the data out there on the motion captures, it just helps people be more accurate, understanding differences from feel and real. And I used to be a little more as an old school guy in the world of feeling things, which obviously you can't teach people to feel what you feel. So I could have really, I'd say back then, really only influenced people in terms of things I'd feel to try and lead them toward a solution. But now I think I'm a little more aware of just more literal things, emotion of movement that help people understand the dynamics of what's really going on and whatever feel they need to capture it. So I definitely have grown like any coach who's been in the space. And I think it's our job. We ask our players to grow. I think it's required that our coaches grow. And so we try and do mandatory things each year where we'll get together. Like, Tucker Frawley is a friend of the clubhouse. Fortunately, gives us the opportunity to train his son. He's the infield coordinator with the Twins. So, we'll get together and have a conversation about infield so all of our guys can just have a more informed perspective on what's going on in the world of pro and where the difference is. And so we do things like that to try and keep growing. And so I think for all the coaches that are out there, don't be afraid if you're a newer coach to share what you believe. But with that being said, I just be also open-minded that you may have a lot of answers, but you may not, there may be other answers still that you can find that make it more applicable for the players. So not that the answers 15 years ago were wrong. There just might be some other ways now that are just maybe a little faster, easier for people to understand. So I think
I was wrong on a bunch of things 15 years ago. I could promise you that.
I think we all missed in a few spots, but that's the honesty of what has to be, needed, and as players, we missed all the time as players, right? We didn't hit every fastball that was over the plate. And I think just the honesty of it, I think it's okay to not be perfect. And that's what people need to understand. And even as coaches, your job isn't to be perfect, it's to be helpful. And the more there's a dynamic where the player understands, look, I'm here to be helpful for you, but I am not like all knowing here. So let's figure this out together.
Like it's funny to say that the first thing I do with a new player, when I'm going to start working with them, I make it a point, introduce myself, look them in the eye, the first thing I tell them is I don't know everything, right? And my job is to help you in this moment in time to understand how you move and to try to put together. I'm a hitting guy, right? So for you to understand your swing, right? Not for me to tell you how to swing. And I think that a lot of people took that perspective, instead of saying, I've got everything figured out. Like you said, you can be a really good coach, you can have a lot of knowledge, but there's never a time that the best aren't getting better. And when you surround yourself with the best, you realize that very quickly that the best are always continually trying to get better. And I think if, my advice to young coaches out there is to take that humility, to not be afraid to talk about what you think and what because they bring a lot to the table. But also understand that your view and your worldview over the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years is going to change a lot. And if you're not continually getting better for your players, you're doing them an injustice, right? And just being honest about that. So,
I have a thought that popped in my head in regards to really the difference between 15 years ago and today, where I'd say I shift the most is I'd say in terms of priorities. And I'll give you an example. Like, let's just take hitting as you're an expert hitting coach. We can have guys who prioritize bat speed, right? And it's not a bad thing, right? And that person is reaching certain successes and problems with that priority in mind, right? And when that player, switches off of prioritizing bat speed to prioritizing, getting to the hitting zone with ease, let's say, and being on time, like things switch, or prioritizes efficiency. So now he's trying to create, a more stable pelvic position so that he can maintain a good posture. Now, all of a sudden, everything's self-correcting. And so the problem that you're seeing later in the swing is starting to disappear because he's prioritizing something earlier in the swing that's taking care of the problems later. So I think one of my big shifts is that I believe that a lot of the problems can be fixed by finding a different priority. And we know everybody's chasing the hardest exit velo, the biggest exit velos, and the biggest throwing velocities, which stem from great movement, obviously, and all the background components of physical training and all the good timing when you're hitting a ball and the good sequence and throwing a ball and all those other things. But, all that comes from just getting back to the magic of great movement, right? And what makes you great. And the magic is what you're searching for. So there's a lot of hitting coaches and pitching guys that get you to throw a strike and all that, but you're really looking for that magic. And that's why training has to be done diligently and with your own identity. And that's why you can't just throw away your identity because somebody throws a pointer at you like, hey, be more stacked. And now all of a sudden, like, okay, I'm giving up what I do because that's what everyone's talking about. And
no doubt.
And you don't even know what that means. So you're just following advice that you don't even totally know what it is. So my thing is be you and be open to learning. And then you have a good chance of finding the magic. But magic also, for me, which is why I love coaches that are great at coaching, is you can see how a kid can light up as he starts believing, and you start encouraging this person in the right way. And then you start seeing the magic because they get less fundamentally oriented and they start relaxing into this athletic kind of space.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden it's like, man, this is looking really good. And so what you're trying to get to is that free, natural mover who's guided by sound technique. And that's the athlete for me, I always say, people ask about creating force, it's part of the game, but a lot of people talk about using the ground and all that. These things are all true, but it's called ground reaction force, not ground force. So you are the one who puts the force into the ground. You are the one who puts the force into the throw. So the more you learn how you can apply force and create force and do these things, the more meaningful you become as a player so that you can now recreate that success again and again. And that's really the challenge, which is what I think Major League Baseball is all about, is the ability to adapt in every way possible to recreate it. It was on day to day and moment to moment, even from first inning to fourth inning. As let's take pitching, you may not feel the same. You're starting to fatigue and whatever's happening. The wind it's getting colder out. You started the game at 57 degrees and now it's 39 degrees. I mean, I played in Chicago. You know what I mean? It can get cold. So now all of a sudden, like, things are changing. And so the good ones are just comfortable in their own skin, being willing to adapt because they grew up in an atmosphere that wasn't fear-based. Like, you can't do this, you can't make a mistake. Like, it's like, hey, you're going to fail. So let's experiment with how we can fail less and do it a little better. Right. And then you become that guy that's like a David Cone is willing to drop down to a sidearm curveball to punch a guy out. Like,
whatever it
wow,
takes.
whatever it takes. Right.
Absolutely. Well, I got two more for you. One
Sure.
of them is going to be kind of a combo question. So what gets you the most excited about being part of the travel ball world, and like, what is your why essentially? What keeps you going and doing it? And the second part to follow up with that is, if you were the commissioner of travel baseball, right? If there was such a thing, what is one thing that you would change if you could? So again, what's your why? What gets you excited about being in the travel ball world? And what's one thing you wish you could change?
Well, I'd say why I do it is because I believe in kids' opportunities to create a better life for themselves. And I like being a part of that. I feel like I can help influence somebody into maybe just a little better life from doing something with us. So getting to the college they wanted to, or the dream they wanted to, just because we give them a little bit of help, a little push in the right direction. So that part really I enjoy. In terms of, it's exciting to see for me in the space that, like, the Diamond Allegiance coming into it, where there's now not a governing body that exists, but maybe more banding together of people trying to do it right, so that there's I just think for families, maybe just we're moving toward a place of I think you're going to get what you paid for. And that's what we want for families, that they invest hard-earned dollars into this space, trying to support their child. And we want them to always get what they paid for. And so I think what the Diamond Allegiance is doing is fantastic. It's helping drive value for families. It's driving value for organizations. And, in terms of, if I were a commissioner, I don't, the first thing I would do is probably hire somebody smarter than me, because that's how you get things done, is having smart people around you. But I would love to see some priority shift in the world of travel baseball, that maybe a kid could get an opportunity from taking an amazing IO, or something like that, instead of, getting something posted about 104 ball exit speed, where some guys don't have the luxury with time constraints to just sit on games and really get to enjoy the mannerisms of a player. Sometimes the metrics just make like there is talent there, and we can cultivate this into something functional. It would be nice to see some other dimensions tested, or even mental toughness tests in the tournament, like who can do the best wall squat, what I mean? It's just who's going to quit first. Whoever wins gets a scholarship. That would be cool for me, like reinventing that space a little bit, where mental toughness has a lot of value too, instead of just physicality on a ball exit speed or a running thing. Because we know there's a lot of, I'm an example that I was not the best at anything in terms of the fastest throw ever, or the best 60 ever, or anything like that. I just did everything pretty well, and I cared a whole lot more. And finding some way to reward the people that just care more, that can't just show out with a ball exit speed or something. That would be my hope is we can kind of figure that out, because we know we've all coached guys that we love that don't have the crazy metrics, but we love them and we want them on the team, you know?
Yeah, well, Mike, stay tuned. Diamond Allegiance is working diligently on that, and we have some solutions we think a lot of people are going to be excited about, but not
Awesome.
quite ready to release them. But we're excited on just that, because, like you said, we need you can be the show horse and not be able to do it in a game, and vice versa. Some of the best players that I've ever coached and have gone on to play in the big leagues, when they were a high school player, weren't the fastest runner or the hardest thrower, or had the best bat speed, and but they knew how to play the game. And at the end of the day, every coach's job is to do what is to put a lineup on the field that's going to help them win, right? And
Yep.
I had a conversation with another Diamond Allegiance member yesterday, and we were talking about one of the fixes that he would like to see is parents being more willing to accept some failure for their kids, and how we can do a better job of portraying that. And my answer to him was, if your son's not in the starting lineup on a daily basis, it's not because the coach doesn't like him. 9 times out of 10, you might have a road coach out there, but I've never met a coach that doesn't want to win. I've never met a coach that shows up to the field and says, my job today is to not win, right? So he's going to do what? He's going to put the best 9 guys on the field that day that are going to help him win, right? So if you want to be one of those guys, work hard and be one of those guys. So last question for you, Mike. Where do you see your program 5 years from now, right? You guys are 15 years in. Do you have any visions for expansion or things of that nature? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
We went through all the work to have franchising be a possibility. So in terms of next steps, like, we're always open to growth. If you're not growing in some way, I think you're dying. So I do think growth in some capacity is going to be part of what we want to achieve. And where that turns into, some different offshoot, so be it. But we definitely are looking to grow in the space, and really, truthfully, I think, from my viewpoint, is to help more kids. There's a lot of kids that still are missed in the fact that they just didn't get some of the help they could have had. I'd like to be able to somehow create an opportunity, maybe help get to a few more kids than we get to just being in Connecticut. So in some capacity, whatever that means it will be, that's what we're looking to do. And God willing, maybe it's a bunch of different locations or satellite things with all the internet stuff these days, and Zooms like we're doing. Who knows? I don't know what the path will be, but we'd love to be able to help a few more kids that are out there, and certainly not the only ones that can help. But I wanted to just mention one last thing, because being the network of people that you guys have influence with, I'm sure there'll be a fair amount of kids that probably tune in. And I would recommend one thing to parents, because I think in this travel space, you asked me before about commissioner, is about parents not ruining the space for the kids. Because as much as they're trying to help it, they also have the power to ruin it for kids. And I think the ride home has to be kind of just mom and kid or dad and kid time, because I've seen kids leave this space because of the ride home, and or just the look coming back to a dugout. You don't even need to say a word, but so I think for the parents, just support your child and understand that not every day is going to be perfect, but jobs are not lost in entirety, like because you had a bad day. Coaches actually want to see adversity. So the 2 punch outs that are followed up with a backside double in the 7th inning have more meaning to a lot of coaches than just lighting up a guy throwing balls in the middle of the plate. So I'd recommend for parents, just as much as it's difficult to restrain yourself, if you can make the effort, you'll probably help your child go much further in the game than by berating them for a bad day.